Well, I think there is nothing that beats hard work and grit. I don't
Hmm.
think there is a magical pill in business. And I think with social media, um, kind of giving this perception of, you can get lucky and just get very rich or your business are going to skyrocket. And no one really wants to look at all these years that were behind all this success. And same for athletes. We watch Olympics right now, but no one really, or not, like a lot of people don't want to experience the pain, the discomfort. And in my opinion, what athletes teach you, or you should actually look closely to, is there is no one single day, I believe, in an athlete's life that they really enjoy it.
I create clear thinking and decisive leaders who can amplify their influence. Contact me to find out how I can help you or your organisation. And today our guest is Kasia Siwosz. How are you doing?
I'm great. Judith, how are you? Thank you for having me here.
I'm good, thanks. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Do you have a favourite sport?
Oh, favorite sport. I think, tennis is still my favorite sport, as I've been playing professional tennis for a while. But I think, now more on the hobby side, I really enjoy skiing. So I think that's something that I've been kind of prohibited from doing for a long time when I was playing professional tennis. So now I'm very much looking forward to a ski season and yeah, that's probably my favorite sport so far. What about you?
Oh, good question. I'm not sure whether I, you know what, it's very different watching sports than playing sports, isn't it,
Mm,
really?
yeah.
Um, but I think I like the 100-meter sprint.
Mm,
I love the martial arts. They're always good to watch. Not so much the mixed martial arts because it
mm,
feels like it's a bit too aggressive. Not because
yeah.
like martial arts is all about like the mind and all that, whereas that seems like just get them down, hurt them, yay. It's not so sophisticated as watching like kido or judo or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that, and I like things like, I like baseball and things like that, things that there's movement to, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. If we go down that path, I have to tell that, I really like heavyweight boxing as well. Anthony Joshua is probably my favorite.
Uh-huh.
So me and my husband have been watching a lot of boxing fights lately. I'm not really like following all the stats and any of that, but whenever the fight is on, I actually really enjoy it. I know this just, the physical part and it's just really brutal, but I think there's so much more to it than just the fight and how they prepare and how they train. I think in all other sports, like every mistake causes you to feel pain. So you really have to, it's not only about the tactic, but, it's like very real. I think it's very similar to life. If you make a mistake, you're just going to get punched in the face and you just have to get up and keep going. So, and sometimes it's more about avoiding punches and actually, I don't know. I think there's really something very romantic, if you can say, about it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I suppose martial arts, with boxing, it's all about, depending on what weight class you're in, it's almost like a dance, isn't it? You've got to coordinate the footwork, movement, you need strategy to move forward. Although I suppose when you get up to certain weight classes, it's just bash, 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 isn't it? They just sort of stand and take the punch. I think it's the only kind of martial arts where you go into it knowing that you're going to get smacked. Whereas every other martial arts, you're in there from a defensive purpose. So you might get hit, but you're not planning to get hit. Whereas with
Mm,
boxing, you plan to get hit, don't you? So I think it takes a different kind of mental preparedness to know that you will go in and you will get hit. And that's just because that's what happens. I'm not sure I'm up for something like that. So
no, no, neither do I. I think, playing tennis was this is a sport where you actually, you don't have any physical contact with your opponent. So I think, but it's just, hitting the ball, running on the court is exhausting enough on your body. And on top of it, you get punched. Like, that's actually, very, very demanding, if I have to say.
Yeah. So tell me more about you.
Sure. So I am originally from Poland. I sort of grew up in post-communist Poland, where I would say at the time there were very few opportunities to do much with your life. It's with any sort of communist state. It's just, you shouldn't stick out too much. I think even at the time, the education was not the avenue for you to do something more with your life. Sports was definitely something that would allow you to travel. And I was very much, I fell into tennis simply by, my parents signing me up for classes. They've never been professional athletes before. They're just working class. My mom is a nurse. My dad is an engineer. So there was not much sort of sports background in my family besides just, recreationally. But quickly, I guess I was standing out from the crowd, and I really enjoyed playing tennis, and it became very quickly part of my life in a sense that, the school was not becoming an option, but was not option one. And soon, probably at age of 10 or 11, I was getting to the point where I would be absent from school for more than 6 months a year, and I was homeschooled. So it was at the time, I didn't know any better, so all I wanted to do was play tennis, and actually school was kind of getting in the way. And, at the same time, it was harder and harder for me to connect with my friends who had just different life. They obviously went to school. They had to do well in school. But my life was, starting before you go to school. I'll have a training practice in the morning. They go to school, or eventually stop going to school and just practice all day long, and pretty much travel every week or every other week, or be gone for 2-3 months at the time. So I've missed out on a lot of things that, children, I guess, should experience, the birthdays, graduations, prom, and all that stuff. I think that whole part was replaced by, competing at the decent level. I've won everything there to be won in Poland, and I start traveling internationally in Europe and then all around the world. And I have to say, I bootstrapped my way to around 400 in doubles in the world, 700 in singles. And that's, I would say, a good place to be. But, you would think you have only 400 players in front of you, but the difference is huge. And it's not so much, I would say, about the technical skills, because I think you would see me in number one playing on the tennis court and just hitting ball to each other. There will be no obvious differences. The biggest difference, I think, it's the mindset, it's the preparation, as well as having the right team around you. So those small building blocks start adding up, and the difference becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think one of the things that I think perhaps didn't allow me to progress even further is that tennis is a very expensive sport, and it is individual sport. What it means is that, for example, if you are playing in a soccer team, when you place in a team, there will be, coaches, trainers from a physical conditioning, all the sort of recovery in place. But when you're a tennis player, it's really all on you, and you are sort of in the center of attention. And then you're going to have 2, 3, 4 coaches. Your parents get really involved. So there's really a lot of spotlight on you. And any mistake, any loss or win, it's really directed at you. So you have to be able to start dealing with the pressure very, very early on. And with the expense of traveling around the world, and as you can imagine, tennis is very sort of, I would say, upper class, luxurious sport to play. So most of the competitions were in very, nice places, Monte Carlo, Nice, it wouldn't be anywhere sort of far away from these big cities, and, hotels would be very expensive, and none of that was paid. So in between, trying to figure out the way to win the match, I had to also worry a little bit, how I'm going to get the money. Some of the money was made by me playing tennis, But still, at that point, I needed a lot of sponsorship from essentially donors, and who loved the tennis, and at times they were generous enough to give me some money to play, but it was not something constant. So I think, and then at around 18, 19 years old, I got to the point where, in order to push through that, 400 upwards, it will require, 100, 200K per year just to actually survive. And then I just couldn't secure the funds. My parents could not really help me, and I had to make a decision what I'm going to do with, all this time that perhaps that I wasted. And I didn't want to feel like I've wasted my time playing tennis. So my next transition was to utilize my tennis skills and get the best education I could. So I got a scholarship in the States, packed my bags and moved there across sort of 3 different schools, started a community college in Kansas for 2 years. Then I moved to Texas for 1 year. And eventually I landed at UC Berkeley in California for the last 2 years, which I really enjoyed, still being able to play at a very high level. And then after I graduated, because my whole life I was always in a very competitive environment, surrounded by very driven people. I didn't really know what to do with my life. And at the time I was dating a boyfriend that was investment banker. And when I was watching him, doing the job, and it seemed very competitive, well paid as well. So I was like, okay, why don't I try this? So I've tried really hard to get in. It was not as easy. Eventually I moved to New York for some internships. I couldn't secure a full-time job. I had visa issues because, I was European. In the US, it was just quite difficult to find a full-time job with a sponsorship. So I applied for a few jobs in London, and I had no intention moving back to Europe. But I got an offer from American banks. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to London. I'm going to do 3, 4, 5 months and then asked to transfer back to the States. But that was probably 13 years ago. And I met my husband at that company. And, here we are sort of with 2 kids, married, happily married. So, that what happened. And in the meantime, so I've worked in investment banking for about 4 or 5 years. Then I've always had that desire to start my own business. And at the time, with a few other colleagues, we opened a restaurant, sort of like a breakfast, lunch place close to St. Paul's in London. I was running it for 3 years. After that, we sold it, and I've moved to venture capital, where I was able to utilize my experience from investment banking as well as entrepreneurship. And then after a while, around sort of pandemic, the fund closed down. We were unable to raise enough capital to make investments. And I was kind of stuck, not knowing what to do, whether I should go back to finance or what should I do with my life. We also were about the time we wanted to start a family. My husband is also working in finance and working long hours. So I start thinking what I should do. And I had a coach at the time, and we were brainstorming different ideas, and somehow coaching came about. And I was like, well, first I was resisting it. I'm like, no, this is not for me. I don't want to do it. But then the more time I spent sort of talking about it and doing more research, I thought, like, you know what, like actually all the experience I've had in my life could be very beneficial for a lot of people. And I've always been in the world of coaching more from like athletic perspective, but I think there is something there for me to utilize, and perhaps I'll be able to set myself apart from, other coaches.
Okay.
And some people might appreciate it or, like that approach, more athletic approach.
Okay,
Here
let me just stop you there then. Because it'd be really interesting. Thank you for that. It'd be really interesting to get into where the overlap is between high level sports and business, specifically around transferable skills. Could you share your thoughts on that?
I think when I started my coaching, when for me it really clicked, I think with any coach, I don't think you can coach anyone. I think it has to be someone that you need to feel comfortable. Equally, I don't think in sports, I could be coached by anyone. So having that experience to, I guess, perform at the certain level where now I'm able to connect with my clients, where you go higher and higher up, what I saw with myself and I saw with my clients, that it becomes a very lonely place.
Yeah.
What I believe and I see is that it's not the technical skills that are stopping you, but more, I think you are your best cheerleader and the worst enemy. And the transferable skills is to be very introverted and understand where are your shortcomings, where can you improve without getting so personal. And what I mean by that, when you are a professional tennis player or any sort of athlete, when there's coach telling you, I think you should improve this and this and that. Somehow in sports, I believe sports athletes take it on the very professional levels. Okay, this is what I need to improve. There is, forehand, backhand, serve, and we work on it. But I believe, or I see a lot of times when in the corporate world, in business, often people don't look at this as in this criteria, and they get a bit too personal. And they think it's, you're being attacked rather than, look, these are your shortcomings. How can we help you to overcome that so you can literally perform better? So I think, to me, this is the biggest overlap, the mindset that sets you apart, and whether or not you are ready to acknowledge that the technical skills that you've acquired, they will improve, but just very little. And they would, I think, give you just marginal differences. But are you ready to actually look inside and change the way you see things, change the perspective, so you can actually move much, much faster towards your goal? Because,
So let's listen to a quick advert. As a leader, you know that having a strong level of influence is essential to achieving your goals. But how do you know if you're truly making an impact? Take the How Influential Are You scorecard to get a clear picture of your current level of influence and identify areas for improvement. With personalised recommendations and valuable strategies, you'll be able to amplify your influence and make a real difference as a leader. Don't miss this opportunity to improve your leadership skills. Take the scorecard now at amplifyyourinfluence.scoreapp.com. Welcome back to the Maverick Paradox. This is the podcast for the pathologically curious. So when we think about athletes, what lessons can we learn from athletes that we can bring into the business world so that then we can optimize performance?
Well, I think there is nothing that beats hard work and grit. I don't think there is a magical pill in business that, a lot of people think that it's a lot about luck. And I think with social media, kind of giving this perception of, you can get lucky and just get very rich, or your business is going to skyrocket. And no one really wants to look at all these years that were behind all this success. And same for athletes. We watch Olympics right now, but no one really, or not, like a lot of people don't want to experience the pain, the discomfort. And in my opinion, what athletes teach you, or you should actually look closely to, is there is no one single day, I believe, in an athlete's life that they really enjoy it. It's all hard work. It's all hard work. It's all sweat, tears. It's injuries. It's recovery. Like, I think when you think about it, like, I don't remember one single day in my life but I was like, hey, I really don't mind, running this 30 suicides until I lose my breath. I'm about to faint. And, who knows, maybe in, maybe 30 seconds, my coach would tell me I have to run 30 more. So, but I never questioned it as an athlete. And I think this grit that you get and expectation that it's supposed to be hard. And if it's not hard, then you're doing something wrong, but you're not pushing yourself enough. Equally as athletes, you go to the gym and you exercise certain muscles or try to perfect a stroke. It should feel hard because otherwise I think you're just not pushing yourself enough.
Mm. But working in the organization, when people have had that mentality of just gritting and just pushing harder, they end up with burnout. Similarly, I suppose athletes end up with injuries. Is that really the only way for high performance is to go for the kill?
Not necessarily it's a kill, but you can equally exercise a lot without any consideration for the strategy that you're implementing. It's not only about, okay, I'm gonna like now bench press 1,000 push-ups, and then that's gonna give me the result. There has to be a proper plan in place to allow you to stretch your comfort zone little by little. But in my opinion, if you're not paying close attention, whether you're stretching your comfort zone, then you would end up not growing or actually going downwards. So it's not about being mindless or brainless about, having the grit, working hard. Because at some point, it's not about, working harder, it's working smarter. But that you should always feel a little bit uncomfortable. And it's not about, having injury and still playing, because you also have to be smart. If you are injured or if you feel there's too much, you have to raise your hand. But I think a lot of people, I don't want to say they don't want to go there, but what I've learned through sports that our mind and body is capable of way more than we think. And sometimes going over the board just to see how far we can stretch it, I think is very healthy. I don't think you should be always at the peak performance and try to stay there constantly. But this is how you learn to set new boundaries for yourself, to expand your comfort zone. And I think in sports, it's similar. Like, you constantly need to improve every single day and operate on a very optimal level, where, yes, sometimes you might feel like you're burned out, and sometimes you might feel like I'm not pushing enough, but being very conscious where you are and constantly adjusting will give you purpose, will give you, I think, motivation. And this is how I see this sort of sports analogy could be equally applied in the business or corporate world. What are your thoughts?
I agree that when we're working towards something that we really want or need to do, we need to be determined and have the grit to see it through. I don't like the idea about working hard and not enjoying the working hard bit. That I don't like the idea of that, because I think there should be joy and fun in what you do. There will be times where it will be really difficult and really hard and really challenging, but there must be times where you can honestly say it's worth it. So, for example, if you might be working in an organization and you're working really long hours to meet a deadline, but then the deadline gets met and there's a successful outcome, and there's joy in the fact that you've reached a successful outcome, which means the hard work was worth doing. But the way you was talking made it sound like it's all hard work and it's really hard, and there's no joy anywhere, and that doesn't feel very motivating.
Well, I'm talking about the work that's in the background. So
Right.
when you think about, Olympics, all these people work for 4 years. They have small competes here and there. Of course, you can see how joyful they are when they win the medal, when they get to compete. So I'm not saying that, winning or competing or, winning individual meets or tournaments is not joyful. Of course it is. But when you actually, and similarly, like, project, when you think about it, you might work on a project for a month, for 2, for 3, right? It's hard work.
Yeah.
And I think when you get to the end of the project, you still don't know if it's going to work. You hope it's going to work. And of course, like, at that point, you shouldn't be like, beat yourself up. It's like, oh, like, yeah, we deliver it, but yet I should be bitter about it. So that's not what I meant. Of course,
Right.
we all, but my point is, like, on the way to that day when you deliver the project or work for promotion, you try to find joy in accomplishing small tasks to know that you are on the right path. for example, if you're working towards promotion, there will be small things that are important for you to accomplish along the way, and they might not feel like big wins, but you need to set small goals to know that you are on the way there. Similarly with athletes, you practice in the off season, and it could be 2, 3, 4 months without practicing playing really much. So you have to find ways to find that joy in winning, in maybe getting faster, getting stronger. So but it's also short-lived during the day. When I run 30 suicides, it might last 3, 4, 5 minutes. Like, I am not thinking about finding joy in that moment. I'm finding a joy in accomplishing it within a certain time. And when I finish it, then of course I'm happy. But that happiness, when you think about it, doesn't last that long, because then you're off to next thing.
Gotcha. I've got you. Funny enough, only yesterday I saw on Facebook, seen it before, but it was like one of those memes, and it had a picture, and all you could see was this ballerina's legs, and she's on point, and with one shoe on and one shoe off. And the shoe that's off, the toes are bleeding and battered. She's got plasters on, and then the text is something like, everybody wants success until they see what it takes to get it, or something like that. And that's true. You see the ballerina, and she's beautiful, and she's doing this gracefulness, but then when you see what she's had to, like, she's damaged her feet, and it was hard and difficult, and affects how she walks and whatever. It's like, do you really want that success as much? And I can totally see what you said. And I remember there was something, I think it was Usain Bolt said something like, he trains for 4 years to run X amount of seconds. Why do people give up after 6 months of trying something? And that kind of puts it in perspective, because he does all that hard training and he runs for a few seconds, and then that's the end of the race. It's not an endurance race. So I totally get that. Kasia, before we finish, is there anything that you think we should discuss, or you want to comment on, in terms of, I don't know, what we can, you've operated at such a high level, anything that we could do from a high level athlete that we can take away into our own businesses or workplaces?
I think, the higher up people go, the lonelier the place becomes. And I think building small team around yourself with friends, family, colleagues, I think it becomes more important than ever. And if people want to go on the journey completely alone, it's, I think, much, much harder. And I think also mentally, I think finding whether therapy, coaching, mentoring, to stay motivated, to stay on track is extremely important, because it takes just 1 or 2 failures and few people just making weird comments where you just might consider giving up. But it meant to be lonely up there, because there's just fewer and fewer of you who are striving for the best. And a lot of times, as you said with the ballerina, right? I mean, this is the standard of perseverance, grit, hard work, that a lot of people won't go there. So I think being surrounded by the right people, or in the organization, creating that type of environment that supports people that want to go that high, I think it benefits everyone else. I don't think everyone needs to be number one. It's not about that. But I think having someone in an organization who sets good standards, it also uplifts other people. And, I remember when I was playing tennis, and there was this girl, she was clearly much, much better than me. And, I was thinking, well, I just don't think I'll be as good as she is. But seeing that level, I think pushed me harder to try, because I thought, this is possible. I can train like her. Well, would I get there? Maybe yes, maybe not. But I think it set me up for more success. And I think allow me to stretch myself, try new things. So I think the environment in sports and in business are extremely important. And with organizations, for the leaders to be that sort of top athletes, top coaches, setting the good standards. And they are on top for the reason. And if they are lazy on top, if they are not creating the right environment and pushing themselves, I don't think it's difficult to recreate that culture underneath.
Brilliant. I totally agree. Kasia, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Judith, for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in to the Maverick Paradox podcast. I'm Judith Germain, your host, and I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation.
The Maverick Paradox Magazine. The Maverick Paradox Magazine is for the pathologically curious. Written by a swagger of socialized mavericks who are divergent thinkers, the magazine tackles the biggest issues affecting maverick leaders today. You might be a business owner or a leader within an organization who wants to have your thinking challenged, to be exposed to a diversity of thought, or to learn from diverse experts in their fields. If so, the Maverick Paradox Magazine is for you. Join the swagger at themaverickparadox.com and engage in the conversation.